of energy today, by the way, just so you know.
Oh, good. Drink coffee?
No, I just have been working so hard that, like, I took it more easy today. And so, like, my energy's like, I can clean more. I'm like, don't clean more. Take a break.
Hey. Hey, welcome. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to East of Anime, a podcast where we talk about anime. I'm one of your hosts. I'm the Big Bad Moon. Right over here on your right is Helen 3D. She's one of your other hosts. And just below me is Bad Strategy. He's your other host. Hey, Helen, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for asking. How are you?
Wunderbar.
Wunderbar.
I am very good.
Yay.
Living the dream.
Always.
It's the weekend time.
The freaking weekend.
How are you doing, Bad?
Oh. I am always good.
And you are.
Reading manga. Manga is good. Sometimes. Always.
Yes, manga is sometimes good. That is the accurate way to say that. Well, so today we're going to be talking about Parasyte.
Parasyte?
Parasyte. Yes, Parasyte is the anime we're going to be talking about today. Parasyte. Is that from something? Isn't it a game, Parasyte?
Maybe
I'm
I don't know.
Crazy.
It's possible.
Yeah,
there are many.
It sounds
many
like a game that
names.
would happen. So Parasyte is what we're going to be talking about today. We watched the first season. There's only one season. I believe it's 25 episodes, and I think we watched the whole thing. Sorry, we are late. We were going to do the podcast last weekend, but that's okay. This is a good weekend too. Plus, last weekend was Halloween, and probably everybody was busy doing stuff. So, initial thoughts. We'll just jump right into it. Helen, what did you think?
I really liked it. I really liked it the second time around. The music hit there. I could see where they purposefully did a lot of strategic things, even in the very beginning, that track through all the way to the end. And I appreciated that a lot. I highly enjoyed it. I'll go into it later, but
for sure.
That's where I am right now.
I am into the music. It has these beeps and boops that sound distinctly sci-fi.
That's true. It does. It has like a vaguely like late 80s, early 90s kind of techno-y thing happening sometimes, which is kind of delightful. I enjoyed that quite a bit. Bad. Do you have any thoughts on the show as a whole?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I know what I think the show is about.
Okay. I'll stop you right there. Let's just talk about what happens in the show first. So as a recap, then you can tell us what the show's about.
I would like to hear what other people think it's about first, though.
Yes, that's fair. Well, I'm just going to talk about real quick before we get into the meat of the show. The show, what happens in the show. So the show starts up, and our main character, and gosh, I can't remember anybody's name. I'm going to have to, it's been a couple days since we finished this, so I'm going to stumble on people's names. Our main character, this guy, he's like he's in high school, I believe. He is at home, and in the middle of the night, he sees like a horrible, like worm, weird, strange worm thing that jumps on Miggy. Yeah, that's the worm thing. Jumps on his arm, and he has a horrible dream. He wakes up, and anyways, what has happened is a bunch of alien spores have come down from the sky, and opened up, and these parasites have come out of them and attacked people. And most people, the parasites attack. The parasite eats their head, and then grows into like a human head and takes over their body.
It's weird.
It was unsuccessful with him. And
that's because he put a thing on his arm to try and stop it.
Yeah, so the parasite jumped on his arm and burrowed in, and he took like his headphone cord and like gave himself a tourniquet so it couldn't get through his arm. So it stayed in his arm. So it ended up eating his arm, and now it has become his arm. I believe his right arm?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it is the lower half of his right arm. It's an alien parasite. That is named Miggy. Or Miggy?
Miggy.
Yeah. So then, over the course of the story, he has this alien arm that he is coming to terms with. As you do when you have a limb eaten and replaced by an alien parasite. And over the course of coming to terms with it, he finds out that there are other horrible parasites out there that have taken over humans and that want to kill and eat humans, and that also probably want to kill him. So he comes into conflict with him, and that's kind of the story. So general overview. There it is. So Bad, tell me, what is Parasyte about?
I am gonna go off on this for a while, so
Okay,
I would like to
okay.
hear what other people think it's about first. Hallen, what do you think Parasyte's about?
Oh boy.
So for me, like Parasite is about this kind of spore creature that uses our planet. They're trying to. I feel like they're just trying to have somewhere to be or belong in the world, but they're also very vicious and like.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like a worm thing can make the whole body be crazy. So,
Yeah.
and like them suffering with, like, I loved the fact that they were suffering over whether or not to have emotions. They didn't understand emotions. And I thought that was really interesting watching that journey of emotions happen to different people who were infected with parasites. Like some were just straight zombies, and then others were like having moral conflicts. And I loved watching that moral dilemma happen, especially like with the baby and stuff like that.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. It definitely it raises some interesting moral issues because I guess, the parasites are technically just a species trying to survive, so they do have to kill and eat people, or I guess they don't have to kill and eat people. We realize they don't have to kill people. That's just kind of the thing they enjoy.
That's just what they do. They just get in the head.
Right.
They just go to the brain.
And I guess by the nature of existing, if they eat someone's head, they do kill a person. So
yeah.
There's a moral conundrum there. So Bad, I'm really curious about your
You didn't
answer.
give your.
I don't know what I would say Parasite's about. I have some vaguely some blurry ideas about it. I think I had a better idea about it a couple days ago. Go ahead. Give me yours, and if
All
if
right.
I agree, I will agree, and if I don't, then I will not agree.
So Parasyte is about the discovery and integration of the Jungian shadow. The first episode, the protagonist realizes.
I don't understand that. The Jungian shadow? What do you mean?
Jung came up with the idea of the shadow.
Carl Jung.
And the shadow.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll keep explaining it anyways. The shadow is the part of yourself that you don't accept, right? It's like it may be like the darker, more violent side, but it doesn't have to be. It can be anything in yourself that you deny, or maybe like culture or society has taught you to deny or to push away this. Like nowadays, aggression is considered bad, right?
Right.
So a lot of people will have shadows that are the aggressive part of themselves that they deny. And so the first episode begins with Shinichi Izumi
Shinichi, that was it.
Yeah, he realizes that his arm is a horrible monster. And he's like, there's this part of me that is a horrible monster. And it's purely rational, and it doesn't care about other people, and it will just eat them to get what it wants. It's entirely self-interested. And then he realizes that there are a bunch of monsters all throughout society, and he's like, oh my gosh, I need to cope with this. And what's interesting is whilst he is coming to terms with Miggy, which is the monster arm of his, there's a Parasyte character that is, what's her name? Ryoko Tamiya, who is a purely she's a monster. She's self-interested. She doesn't care about murdering people. So she's the opposite, right? She is like the shadow, but she is going through that same process of integrating her shadow because as the monstrous, cold, emotionless, self-interested thing that she is, her shadow is the emotional part of herself. And so she has to work on understanding and accepting that. And then and that's a major point in the character development for her. And Shinichi, partway through the story, he's so afraid that he's becoming more like this monstrous part of himself. And partway through the story, he gets attacked, and he only survives because the monstrous part of himself enters into him and saves him. And then from that point on, Miggy his hand has to sleep for 4 hours a day. And it's like the monstrous part of himself has shrunk, and he's gained more control over it. He's like integrated it more thoroughly into him. And then his father breaks down with his mother's death, and you can see how not to behave during a family tragedy. And because he's integrated this monstrous element of himself more, he is able to be strong and to do what he needs to do, and to stand up during the tragedy of his mother's death, and to be a heroic figure. And it's the integration of the shadow element that makes him so much better and makes him grow so much stronger. And then there's the character Kana, who's really interesting, because Kana is a character who falls in love with him, and she is a character who's important to the story because she's entirely ignorant and oblivious to the shadow, right? She doesn't understand monsters at all. She doesn't accept that that's like a part of people, and he keeps trying to warn her, and eventually she dies because she's too naive to be able to see the monstrous element of humanity. And by the end of the story, Shinichi fully accepts Migi, and then you know what happens? Migi goes to sleep.
Migi goes away, yeah.
And so it's just Shinichi because he's fully integrated that part of himself. And so that's what I think.
There's something I wanted to talk about when you said about the lady, the girlfriend, kind of, sort of. She was drawn very similarly to the mother. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but I thought that was a really interesting choice. That was like, oh, she kind of looks like mom. Like, they were very like somebody made choices to make this character look similar to the mother.
Oh, do you mean Satomi?
Yeah.
Satomi? Okay, yeah. So I'll draw the distinction for the audience in case they're missing they're missing it. Shinichi has a girlfriend who's Satomi Murano, and then the character Kana is like wants to be his girlfriend but doesn't ever become that.
Yeah.
So I thought you were talking about Kana for a moment.
Sorry, I got thrown. I didn't mean Kana, but Kana, that was sad.
So anyways, I think that this is a story about integrating that like shadow element of yourself.
Interesting. And do you suppose the writers of this story have read Carl Jung? Is my question.
Well, I don't know. It's a weird.
Like
it is a weird thing because sometimes writers don't understand the messaging well enough to be able to articulate it. And sometimes they come to understand the messaging as they articulate it. And
that's fair.
And sometimes they come to understand archetypal messages without having to study people who understand archetypes because they're archetypal. So it's hard to say.
Well, I think we had a discussion earlier on in the week about what makes a story, and I think what makes art and exploration being a necessary part of that. So you could say that writing an archetypal character, exploring an archetypal character is how you come to understand the archetypal character.
Yeah. So the conversation, I'll say this for Helen, is the conversation we had. I was saying that the something I've heard that I thought was interesting is the difference between art and propaganda. Art is the exploration of the unknown, and if you're not exploring the unknown, it's not art. So if you already know what the message is before you go into a story, then it's just propaganda.
Yeah.
And I would like to praise this because in Parasyte, all of the storylines, all of the elements of the story are all exploring the same concept from different perspectives.
Right.
And I love when they use different viewpoints. It's so wonderful.
It also really, something I really like is when they raid the building full of parasites, the entire purpose of like the main function of that element of the story is to show how monstrous the people fighting the parasites are. Because it's good. It's good stuff. Anyways, I like Parasyte.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a really good show. Or I enjoyed watching it quite a lot, and I think that internal human struggle with themselves was one of the interesting was probably the main interesting part of the show. There are little side plots. There's a little feud with some bullies at the school. And it built just fine. It started out at the school, and there were some bullies, and then there were some pseudo gang members.
I actually really kind of liked Mitsuo, who was just like this side character. He was like he kind of functioned like the leader of the gang of bullies, though I think they said that there was a different leader.
There was a different leader.
But he was Kana's girlfriend before Kana was like, "Oh, Mr. Protagonist." And I really liked Mitsuo's kind of side story. It was fairly simple, but I was into it.
Chicks dig protagonists.
They do.
That's right.
They do. Although this protagonist is actually like, he's not like the standard anime protagonist of like, the less interesting I am, the more ladies love me.
Although they did the very, very stereotypical thing of the more powerful he got, he lost his glasses.
Yeah. Oh, now I'm powerful.
Look at how much more powerful she is. Oh my god. You can tell because she's not wearing glasses. That's
oh my goodness.
It's a very unkind stereotype for people with glasses.
It really is. It's like, so what? Like, why glasses?
Well, glasses also make you look smarter, so we'll not pretend it's a one-sided stereotype.
That is true. The stronger you get as a protagonist, the dumber you get.
Well, it's also kind of a classic thing that the protagonist is not the most clever person. Oftentimes, the villain is the most clever person, and there are reasons for that, because like clever people are prone to arrogance. So it's like the Icarus idea is like, you fall in love with your creation, you can't see the flaws with it, and then you die because you couldn't see the flaws with it. And so I like archetypes. They're fun.
Yeah, there's a reason they exist. But
I was going to go off of that and say that, I really liked the fact that even though Ryoko, I think was her name, is that right?
Ryoko Tamiya.
She was kind of she was a villain, but like, I liked how the dumb people were so arrogant that they were just attacking in like midday. Like, they were risking their species just by being, like, not smart. Like, they did not make choices that were beneficial to their survival. And Ryoko was like, no. Like, she was the one who was, like, thinking it through. And so I really liked that about her as a villain, because it was, like, I almost felt for her. And, like, there were times where I really,
It's interesting. So like the protagonist starts off in a place where he's naive and he's dangerous. He's a threat because he's got this like monstrous part of himself that he doesn't know how to control, and he's worried it's gonna hurt people. And so he's dangerous because he's naive and not controlling it. And Ryoko is the opposite, because she is the monstrous thing that could hurt people. But both of them, as they move towards integrating the part of them that like shadow part of themselves, become better people, and they become less likely to hurt the people around them.
Okay, so here's a question I have for you, Bad. With the Jungian shadow in mind, what do you think of the villains of this story?
Well, I mean, I guess a lot of the... All right, who are the villains?
So
well,
obviously we have the high school kids, the gang.
The gang, and the gang are kind of like weak, like low status people who aren't really they aren't really strong, and they don't really do what they should be doing, and they
Right.
kind of, but they kind of like stick together and beat up people, and then they're like, we're tough because of this.
Right.
So I mean, that's like, I don't know how to word that, but that's a good antagonist, because that's definitely a thing you don't want to be, is like a weak, cowardly, low status person who's just like getting together with a group of other weak, cowardly, low status people to beat up others and to try to prove you're strong.
Right.
And then there are the parasites that are just like, I am purely a monster.
Right. Well, okay, so let me see. As far as the actual bad guys, you have over the course of the show, there's the there's the high school kids. Then there is the teacher that comes to class, and what's her name now, because she changed her name or her identity later.
Ryoko Tamiya.
Ryoko Tamiya. She comes to class and is the teacher, but she comes with this other guy who is just kind of a bad guy. He doesn't really have a bunch of character stuff going on. So he's just kind of a monster, and he ends up just trying to attack the main character in the middle of school.
Hideo Shimada?
Doesn't she call him like Mr.
She
something?
calls him Mr. A.
Mr. A, yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Mr. A.
So that's a very, very Japanese thing to do, is to pick a letter that's not the first letter of the name.
Yeah, that's just very Japanese. That's like, so okay, so there's Mr. A. Then after that, there's the guy who's he's like a kid. He's like a student at the school, but he is really powerful. Gets a rock through the chest on the roof. That guy.
Yeah.
Thoughts on rock through his chest guy?
I don't know.
Maybe, I like that name. Rock through the chest guy.
You know exactly who I'm talking about.
Yeah, he's. I guess he's too short-sighted.
Yeah.
Maybe it's appropriate that the way he was killed was by the protagonist going beyond where he could see.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's very fair. And then what's the next one? That's because that's after basically that was the last villain from the school. And then he gets into hunting around. I can't remember who the next villain is.
Yeah, I mean Ryoko was a really, really good antagonist, because she's so much more interesting, and like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess the police are a bit. The police are a bit of an antagonist.
Well, then his mother dies.
Right.
His mother's
right.
murdered by the parasite when they're on vacation, and then she comes back home.
Yeah. So I guess.
Him.
Yeah. That was so interesting, because I liked him having to like face the family tragedy at the same time.
Right.
And to cope with that, and it was so great how it away.
Yeah. Ooh, that's bright.
What's bright?
Oh my browser.
Ah.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, that was absolutely horrific. His mother dying, coming back and stabbing him through the chest.
There's also a line of dialogue I will mention, because I'll forget if I don't mention it. Ryoko Tamiya, in the last episode in which she appears, she mentions that both parasites and humans are two halves of the same coin, which I will say.
That's fair.
Perfect.
That's
perfect.
Fair. Perfect. Interesting. Well, then, okay. So then after that, you have, just say the big main bad guy in the end, which is the like 5 different parasites in one human body, super guy who
different. Yeah.
Like, how does that relate? You think?
I don't know how it relates exactly, but I liked the idea that they had that in the very beginning, because in the very beginning he's like, "Oh, just join my body,"
right?
Because he had his hand, and they were like, "Yeah, just get rid of your host, kill him, and just join me."
Right.
And like Migi has kind of this like deciding factor, and I was actually scared Migi was going to go to that other thing. And so I thought that was an interesting dilemma that then carried on to have this bad guy who has all of these parasites in them. And I don't know how that would work exactly, because like with Migi, it took everything in him to keep the guy alive. And so, like, how would it work to have those other parasites in there? Like, how would they be able to, like, sustain themselves? You know?
I don't know. Well, the parasites are kind of weird because it seems like they cannot increase in mass after their initial stage of development where they take over a person. It seems like anything they lose is permanent. Like, for example, when Miggy merges with the protagonist, it's like, I am reduced in size and I cannot be as much as I was before. So I'm not sure about that. As for how that antagonist ties into the overall themes, that antagonist, most of their stuff was in the last 3 episodes, and I don't think I'm wrong in saying the last 3 episodes felt rushed and maybe a little inconsistent with the rest of the narrative. For example, global warming is the cause of everything.
That was weird. I wasn't super into that. Is that because that was one of those things they threw out in the was it the last, like, second last episode or something like that?
Yeah, they hinted at it before, but it didn't feel integrated into the story. And maybe the writer wanted to, but they couldn't find a way to integrate it with what was working.
Yeah, I don't know. That is always something that I always think is kind of dumb. Like, it was the Earth that doesn't like humans living on the surface, so it decided to create a alien parasite. Or I don't know. That's pretty thin. Maybe in like a fantasy I could get along with that, but in anything other than a fantasy, it's like, it's kind of weird. I don't know about that.
With the ending being rushed, I thought it was really interesting that the anime actually ended the same with the manga. So,
really?
The anime and the manga ended at the same, like, they were at the same point. There's no more manga. There's no more. Yeah.
And it may very well have been that the writer felt like he was finishing the story but didn't know how to integrate the remaining elements, and so he just kind of wrapped it up to move on.
Yeah, that's fair. I can definitely understand that. It can be hard to.
I mean, I've been there before with I've been there before with things.
And I don't know. I guess I assume that this was a relatively successful show. It was fun to watch at the very least, and it was pretty well written for the most part.
It has sci-fi music because it beeps and
it
boops.
has pretty good beepy boopy sci-fi music.
I like the music. The music, it set the tone and the pace really well.
The art was really good. Very super good art. There were a few. There's only like maybe like 4, 5 over the course of the show. Obvious 3D CG moments. Which I just don't like. I like every time I see them, like, obvious, low poly 3D models are.
It's funny because it feels like we're having the same thing nowadays with anime, and I think we're nearing the end of it. Maybe that we had in like the late 90s with 3D graphics in video games.
Yeah.
Where there were like good looking video games, and then there were video games that were hideous, and they were like, we're using the latest technology. It's 3D.
It's 3D.
Yeah.
Why are you using
because
that?
it's 3D, they're using it for the 3D. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So there's not too many of those. It's like maybe 4 or 5, something like that. But yeah, otherwise the art's, I think, really good. There's a lot of great motion in it, just because the parasites do this weird blade, like long stringy arm blade spaghetti attack with each other. That is kind of fun. Hello?
Oh, we've lost her.
Oh,
it could be.
the last thing we ever heard from Helen.
Famous last words. It felt like there was some metaphor attempt in the end there with like the thing that he needed to defeat the monsters was the like pollution that he'd like in the like garbage that he hadn't known about, and it was like this like it was something.
It was kind of shoehorned.
It wasn't like fully formed, especially after how well put together the rest of the show was and how consistent it was.
Yeah, no, totally. I would 100% agree with that. But real quick, though, I want to jump back to the visuals because some of the visuals in the show were really amazing.
Mhm.
Like, and I think that is probably one of the best parts of the show, especially in moments like when his mother, well, the parasite that is controlling his mother's corpse, comes back to his home. There's some really wonderful visuals in there. There's some wonderful visuals all over the show. So the art, definitely one of my favorite parts of this show.
It's hard for me to describe what I like about art, but there is something about the art of this show that I'm like,
art.
this is easier to watch.
Yeah, it was very pretty. What about the art was really good? There was a lot of there she goes.
Am I Helen now?
Are you? Yes,
Hello.
you are, and I'm you.
Lordy.
Oh, we switched.
We switched to unlimited Comcast, and it's not working very well. So
Sweet.
Dang. Okay,
Yeah.
I think we're back though. Yeah. Okay.
I'm using my phone's hotspot.
Oh, okay, that's fair. Well,
It's fine.
Do you have unlimited data?
I do
Okay.
actually.
Okay, good. I was going to say, I don't know how long we can have the stream on then if you don't have unlimited data.
I do have
It's
unlimited
an
data. We're
expensive
good.
stream.
And actually, my stuff works really well with that. So
Yeah, geez, Comcast. You know, hey, bad.
I don't hate him.
Hal, I don't know if you know this, but SpaceX just started their open beta for their Starlink. Free or $100 Wi-Fi anywhere on the planet. Nobody knows what I'm talking about?
I'm excited.
I'm excited about it. So SpaceX, Elon Musk. We're going to talk about anime in a minute. Just give me a minute.
Okay.
There was sci-fi music. This is relevant.
Yes, there was sci-fi music. So the thing where the SpaceX launched a whole bunch of satellites, like 14,000 satellites, and they're going to orbit Earth, and you can be anywhere on the planet. And you have to pay for the box that you upload and download from. It's like $500 or $600 or something like that. But for $100, you can get super fast internet anywhere on the planet.
That would be beautiful.
Right? I'm dropping. You know what?
It's worth it.
If I had like
freaking worth it.
If I had like an extra $1,000 laying around, I'd drop Comcast right now.
I'm gonna be so excited for when Comcast and the other big nasty monopoly companies that don't give you good services, just lose all of their subscribers and have to live off of government bailouts.
Yeah, I know for the next 30 years, that's what's gonna happen.
There's not gonna be any money left after this pandemic shit.
And it's one of those things where you think that Comcast, how can they not realize that as soon as there's any other option but Comcast and Time Warner, anybody has any other option, they're gonna be like, oh well, I'm going to that because this is bad. That can't be any worse. So, anyways,
and it's worth it.
Anyways, sci-fi tangent aside, although I'm going to stick with that. That was a science fiction tangent, but it's
I missed the science fiction tangent.
Yeah, they're great.
So
fine.
So
I think best girl.
That's so hard.
Migi.
I kind of feel like it might be Migi because I really like Migi. I don't know if there's any other candidates.
I kind of like Mitsuo.
Yeah,
I kind of like the
Mitsuo's the friend, right? Who also has a parasite.
The punk kid who beats up the protagonist.
Yeah.
And he's super into Kana, and then when Kana dies, he's torn up about it, and
that's
a side character, but I kind of like him.
I'm gonna have to think about that.
I think his hat says Pumph.
Oh yeah, you know why I don't know his name? No, it's because it was Doph.
Doph.
D-O-P-H. So the whole show, because we didn't remember his name, we just called him Doph.
Doph.
Oh yeah, it's Doph. I don't know what Doph is doing. I wonder if he still beats up kids. I'm gonna go with that. Doph is best girl.
Doph. Okay.
Waifu? I am tempted to break the tradition of always naming not a female character as waifu, by
Whoa.
naming Ryoko Tamiya as a waifu.
I
Because,
would agree with that.
I mean, she's also a monster, so
This
maybe.
goes against tradition.
Either that, or I really like the best friend guy. I can't remember his name. Who he meets later when he's like discovering.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, Mamoru Uda.
And like
Uda, yeah.
later, like in one of the later episodes, when he needs him, he's there for him. He's like, "Oh, I got you. I'm here."
Yeah. Yeah, that's
So
fair.
I highly enjoyed that.
You know, if we're
Tamiya, she protects her babies.
yeah, but also she's
That's-
like she protects her babies, but she's not what I would call a good mother. Maybe if she had a little more time to get some of those human things down, she would be a good
She
mother.
was working on it. She was integrating them.
She was integrating the shadow. Yeah, totally.
She just acknowledged that she cared about her baby enough to murder.
Yeah, exactly. She did just realize, maybe like 10 minutes before that happened, she just realized that she cared whether or not her baby was thrown off a cliff.
Right.
So that's really the first step to becoming. What do you think, Tom? Isn't that the first step to becoming a good mother? I don't want to throw this baby off a cliff.
I mean, it depends.
It depends on the day.
You go back and forth on that one sometimes.
Yeah. Ooh. But yeah, I would definitely say Migi is Migi's best girl, and for me, waifu. Oh gosh, that's a tough one. Maybe like literally, if you're breaking tradition, which we really shouldn't do.
I agree. We shouldn't break tradition.
What is main character's mom? She seems like a really good mom.
Yeah,
She was a really
She's
good
like,
mom.
you have to. Yeah.
I like when she calls him out on his crap too. She's like, "You're being weird. Something wrong with you. This is not okay."
It also helps add to the tragedy that he is like unjustly like a jerk, but not in an unnatural way, right? Sometimes they do horn that in where it's like they were a jerk for arbitrary reasons, but this time it's like you can see
he's hiding his hand. He's like,
but it's still unfair to her.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And that was one of the really horrible, sad, tragic things about her story over the show is that he's like, kind of like she's a little bit mean to her, and then she's horribly murdered by an alien.
And it's more tragic.
Really
like he's like, "No, you can't go. You can't leave. You can't leave." And then he's like, "Wow, I'm being a jerk. Okay, go." And then she dies.
That's a fascinating thing. What do you think of that? Bad the idea that the character, the main character, doesn't want his mother to leave, and then when he lets her leave, or when
it's interesting because it's like his realization of like the human shadow is to be like, oh my god, there are monsters in the world and I need to be overprotective and no one should ever leave. And like it's like the thing that parents do when they're like, you can never grow up, child. I am like a devouring parent that will never let you leave because
Yeah.
Yeah, and then after that he has to face the tragedy of like sometimes these things happen. It's like, oh my god. You did the best you could.
Because that's actually, I think that's one of his. That take a couple of episodes. This arc where where he became okay with her leaving. Was that just one episode or was that 2 episodes?
I'm not.
I think it was in the first 2. I don't remember which episode. Maybe it was the first one. It might have been towards the end of the first one, or it was the second. I can't remember.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of very, very like wonderfully human problems in this one. This was a great
and it's like no matter what you do, whatever you do, bad shit can happen, and then you just have to face it, and that sucks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's also I love that it's the like monstrous element of him that allows him to handle his mother's death and that tragedy, like in a heroic way, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah,
and his father's such a mess. His father's like made of steel.
That was
that
was terrible.
That was almost kind.
And it was such a moral qualm too, because his father's like, there are these monsters in the world, and he's like hiding the fact that he has a monster on his arm, and he's like
his father,
you know,
his father's the person who never integrated that well enough to be able to be strong in that moment, who's just shattered by the revelation of
I think when that happened, when his father was like shattered by it and was like saying the wrong thing to his son after tragedy, I was like, damn, this is not the way to handle tragic situations in your life.
It also, especially with that, it feels like normally I criticize the writers of anime in things because I'll be like, the writers see, like, just by listening to the dialogue and hearing the narrative, the writer seems like unapologetically arrogant, like they think they know everything. But this writer's not like that. Instead, I actually think this writer's a person who has a certainly above average grasp of the human condition.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I agree with that.
It's like some writers just clearly have a much better grasp of what people are like. It's like reading like great writers like Dostoevsky. You see that.
Oh, I like Dostoevsky.
I like saying
he's also
Dostoevsky.
got a Russian name, so it's like Russian name.
Yeah,
right.
I like saying all
it's
of
the Nietzsche.
I like saying all of the old dead Russian writer names. They're very fun. I wish my name was Russian.
Right?
Chekhov. I like Chekhov too. Anton Chekhov.
Oh, like the guy from Star Trek.
No.
Chekhov. What are you talking about?
I think she means Star Trek.
Yeah.
The seagull. The seagull.
Was there a seagull in Star
Have
Trek?
you never read The Seagull? Oh my god. I can't deal with people.
Nothing goes over my head. I'm too fast. I would catch it.
Извините. It means excuse me in Russian.
You are excused.
You are
Thank
excused.
But yes, this was a fun show. I enjoyed it greatly.
Yeah. I would say.
Where would you put it on? Like, what would you say? Where would you put it on like your spectrum? Is it like in your top 10?
Okay, that's a really weird. I don't like numbering things like that. But here, bad. Yeah. What are you saying?
Okay. Few things. Okay. First thing.
Okay.
First thing. Last like 3 episodes or so are much weaker than the rest of the show and should be put. Next thing.
Oh, hold on. I didn't actually catch that. You said.
Yeah, you froze up for a moment there for me. Okay, so the last 3 episodes are much lower quality than the rest of the show. They're less consistent. Put into their own category.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing. It's kind of a different type of anime from a lot of others, which makes it hard to compare because this is very much and like focused on analyzing the human condition and looking at
an exploration. Exploration of the human condition.
There's a popular genre that's coming about nowadays. That's almost like Let's Plays, where it's like the protagonist is almost in isolation from everyone, or maybe they literally are in isolation from everyone else. And it's not really about humans or character development. It's like, watch me level up whilst I have witty banter with myself. And so it's important I'm drawing the distinction between extremes.
I get what you're saying.
There are a lot of anime that are far less focused on the like deeper elements of human nature, like what Parasyte focuses on. And Parasyte is focused on it so intensely that I think it belongs at one of the extremes. So maybe it's hard to compare those.
Yeah, that's fair. I think a criticism that is often had for anime that we watch, or that just kind of anime in general for us, is that the villain doesn't have much to do with what the core of the show is about, or that the main character's issues are not.
I felt like that with Decadence. I feel that.
Yeah, no, that's totally and it's a frustrating problem because the villains don't have any like real emotional weight to them when they.
I would also like to point out Ryoko Tamiya, very, very strong villain.
Right.
Like excellent antagonist because she's got more depth to her, and she's got like
Yeah, totally.
and by the time she is defeated, you're on her side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Which is,
yeah, totally. I 100%.
I enjoyed that. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed that.
yeah, you get you get to the point with like by the time she's doomed, you're like, but she's a person.
She's a person now.
Which
Oh.
you oftentimes you don't reach that with villains.
Right.
You don't get to the
Mhm.
point of acknowledging their humanity by the time the demise comes
Or
around.
sympathizing with them. I
Yeah.
think it's hard to sympathize a lot in some animes where you're like, okay, the villain's the villain.
Yeah, and I would
There's no redeeming quality. You're a shithead.
I would argue that that's a product of the writer having such a primitive comprehension of the nature of the world that they can't conceptualize like evil or the cause of adversity or the cause of hardship or like
Right.
the antagonistic force as anything other than just like a malicious thing that wants to hurt them.
Agreed.
Well, yeah, and so this is a problem with a lot of shows that we've watched is that the villain, is just basically is not interesting. Is not deep enough and doesn't have enough to him. Is not reflective of what the greater themes of the story.
There's not a journey for the villain.
Yeah, right.
I think that's part of the problem is there's not a journey. I like seeing a journey. I like seeing that develop.
That's an important thing to draw attention to, because it's not just that it's not simply that the villain is just a jerk with nothing else going on. It's that they're that and they're not capable of changing.
Well,
they're not changing at all.
The way that I would phrase it in a little bit more of an abstract way is that in a lot of shows, the villain, in a lot of shows that don't do it well, the villain is a symbol and not a character.
Yeah,
I really like that. That's a great way to say it.
I can agree with that entirely.
Yeah. So so let me think. Where were we at? We were talking about.
Damn it! I forgot.
What?
I would like to assign to the category of best earmuffs, Kana's earmuffs.
Oh yeah, totally. I can get behind that.
That's
Totally best earmuffs.
I feel like I missed the window where we were discussing this, but
That's okay. We can retroactively award best earmuffs to Kana's earmuffs.
Best earmuffs.
So this for me was a really good horror.
Yeah,
Because I felt like it wasn't quite a horror, but it was horror.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I felt like it tapped into a lot of different elements, which made me happy.
I almost feel like it would fall into like a category like psychological rather than horror.
I would actually. I would agree.
That's fair.
I think as a psychological thriller, with
I
horror
mean,
themes
if
in
my kids saw it, they would be horrified.
I mean, to be clear, it is horrifying.
That's fair.
But
I would say the same thing, psychological.
Yeah, it was. I think it definitely falls more generally into psychological horror. But okay, let's shift just a little bit. Who would you recommend this show to? We're talking about what it is and what kind of stuff is in it and how it feels. Who would you recommend this anime to?
Not to any children.
Yeah, that's true. Not to any children or anybody who doesn't like blood or like weird bodily transformations.
This is not a child's anime.
Yeah,
okay.
It has an element of the thing in there.
I was gonna say if you watch anime and you liked 1980s John Carpenter's The Thing, then watch this. Because
that was a good movie too, dude.
Such a good movie.
That is a good movie. I have lots of opinions about The Thing, because it's a great movie.
This is definitely an anime that can be recommended to non-anime people, I think.
You think so? You think it's not too weird?
It's weird, but not in the anime way. It doesn't fall into weird in any of the anime way.
That's fair.
Right? No,
and especially if people like psychological thrillers, I think they would like it regardless of if it's an anime or not.
I'm also tempted to say that this is just kind of a good thing to watch regardless because of how it delves into human nature in an interesting way.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
Mm-hmm. I don't know who I'd recommend it to. I think it'd be easier for me to recommend than most anime because it doesn't do the weird cultural things. I'm gonna call them cultural.
It is still pretty weird though.
is
The
weird.
guy's arm is replaced with a thing, and he talks to his hand.
Well,
Talk to the
but I
hand.
think it could be like a non-anime thing too. Like it's these spores that are these creatures that infect people. So there's some grounding in that I really like. So I feel like non-anime people would be able to get on board and understand that to a degree.
Sure.
Go ahead, Noah.
I think this is an anime that is, if you have like children, especially boys, it'd be really easy to be like, watch this because it's got cool aliens and violence, and it's like, yay, cool aliens and violence, and I'd be like, you're learning about your own nature.
Gotcha.
You know, it's like you give someone a carameled apple, and you're like, they don't realize I'm making them eat an apple, and that's healthy.
It's insidious.
It is a little insidious.
Yeah, that's fair.
Who would you?
I think I maybe would. I would recommend it to people who like kind of off the or. Actually, you know, I would say I would recommend this to people who like old school science fiction. And I mean like old school science fiction, like Isaac Asimov, and like I mean I'm not talking about anime right now. Although it does have a very old school, like weird. It feels a little bit old school to me, just because it's kind of straightforward. And it's like, it's weird in a way that reminds me of like, you know, 1950s, 1960s science fiction writers. So
I agree.
I would recommend it to people who like old science fiction. I think it's the kind of thing. I know a few people who would like this kind of thing, and that's.
I don't feel like I've seen a lot of good new science fiction though. Is my argument.
That's an interesting statement, and I don't know if I'd have to think about that for a little while.
I think,
and we'd have to define terms.
Part of
That's
the
fair.
issue
That's fair.
is there's like in ye olden days, it was harder to produce various things.
Yeah.
And so the barrier to production was higher.
Yeah.
Which I think meant that a greater proportion of what was produced was of quality, because you had to be that much more into it to be able to even get it off the ground.
To sell it, yeah.
Whereas nowadays, there's a very, very low barrier to entry in more fields, and so more stuff is produced overall, which means there's more good stuff, but there's a greater proportion of bad stuff. So it's hard to compare, because it's like, well, I used to watch sci-fi, and 3 out of 4 things was good, and now like 1 out of 12 things is good, but there are like 100 times more things. So
right, that's kind of what I was getting at. Thank you.
yeah. That's an interesting. Yeah, no, I can.
But I didn't think about it like that. But
think about it. I have to think about it.
I've noticed that makes it hard for me to appraise the differences. So.
Well, and I do think that, so, like, for instance, and this is a totally different conversation that we don't have any time for today, because we only have about 7 or so
7 minutes.
But as storytelling evolves, as it has done for, you know, human time immemorial, the art of storytelling, the art of doing things evolves, the style of doing things evolves. You can look at the acting styles of the 50s and the 60s and the 1920s, and they're very different stylistically. And the directorial style, they differ, and so
different methods, different
methods, just different ways of framing things, different ways of acting, you know. And I think we really got into in the 1999 or like 2000, 2002, people who were really trying to go for a hyper realistic kind of reaction in acting, whereas like if you in the 50s, it was a little bit more stage kind of acting.
It's
there's so much method behind that I can tell you about, but I won't go into it.
Exactly.
I will. It is. It
Way
is
bigger
delightful.
conversation than we have
That's
time.
a can of worms for me because I like studied Udo Hagen, I studied Stella Adler, like,
Totally.
and I have like different genres from around the countries,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it did. So
Mm-hmm.
when we started, it was very caricature acting,
Right. So,
and then it got deep, and now it's you find that level. There's so much, but anyway. Sorry. I'll get off my
yeah, no, exactly. Bab, did you
train.
have something to say?
I would also like to mention that a detail that I didn't think about is the character Kana, who is overly naive, and her naivety gets her killed, has like bigger eyes than the other characters. Like her eyes are open wider, like she's a naive person who's like seeing everything for the first time.
Right.
Yeah.
So I thought that was good.
No,
artistic
totally.
element.
And so this is so when I see this story feels a little bit more like a type of story or an approach to a story, a perspective on a story that I would expect out of like, a sci-fi novel from 1965 or 1975. Like,
yeah,
it feels like that. And that's not good or bad. It's a stylistic thing, but it's definitely something that feels a certain way. And
it also lends to that because of the environment they're in. They're not in like a fantasy world. They're in like real world environment, and like the police are involved, and they're trying to uncover what's going on. And it's got this like noir little bit of element in there.
I will say the animation is very modern and it's very good, and so I think that the animation does make it feel very modern, but like the story itself feels kind of old school.
I agree with that.
Oh God, I can't even remember if I had a final point to that. We were talking about who we'd recommend it to. I think I was explaining that, huh? Or my choice on that, huh?
If we want to go into recommendations, Hallen, okay, you asked. Okay, I got a new manga recommendation for you.
Okay.
Except it might not be a manga, it might be a manhwa. I think it's a manhwa. Peerless Dad.
Okay.
Peerless Dad. It's a fun like like kung fu, going to the school, mastering kung fu kind of thing.
Like that.
But done in a slightly different way.
I love kung fu.
It's done in kind of a classic way. Like there are a bunch of kung fu masters, and one's like, I'm the super agile, nimble sword master, and the other's like, I am the iron, get punched lots and punch people master. And one master is like a pair of twins who are like weird twins who use twin martial arts.
That is such a good trope where one master is a pair of twins. Yeah. you know you've seen that. Oh, that's funny.
One that I was pretty shocked that I liked was Hunter x Hunter, because it kind of didn't look like it was going to be very good, and I don't know if every season is very good, but the first season was legit.
I've heard so many good things about it. I've tried to watch it 2 or 3 times and given up on the first or second episode because it's kind of slow.
It's slow.
Okay, I'm gonna
but once it picks, it picks.
I'm gonna catch you guys off right there. So.
Okay.
We have 2 minutes.
We'll stop weebing out.
Final thoughts. Yeah, I know you weebs. Final thoughts on Parasyte. Bad, go.
I want those earmuffs.
Thank you.
I want those earmuffs.
Are those your final thoughts too? They were really
watch
nice
it. If you're into psychological thrillers, watch it.
Or science fiction, yeah.
Let us know your thoughts.
Or if you're reading Jung.
I would recommend the show to anybody who likes really decent anime. It's a really decent show.
Oh no. Okay, if you're taking an intro to psych class in college, watch this show and be a snob about it at college.
Seriously though, that's so smart.
Use it in your presentation, and the teacher will be like, "Good job."
I'm glad this is what we learned. Be a snob. Hey.
Be a snob.
What are we going to be watching next time? We decided. We did.
Oh, were we doing Rising of the Shield Hero?
Were we doing Rising of the Shield Hero? Okay.
Yes.
Rising of the Shield Hero is what we're going to be doing next time.
Season 2 should be coming out soon, so we will be doing season 1. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Do you know when season 2 is coming out?
Either I don't think it's going to be this year. I think it's next year.
Okay.
But it should be very, very soon. So spring, maybe?
Rising of the Shield Hero, season 1. How many episodes are there in the season?
24? 26?
Okay.
20.
Also, just so everybody knows, if there are 24 episodes, if the anime is not like super good, we only watch 12 episodes.
Yeah.
We will watch at least 12 episodes, but if it's really good,
25.
We'll watch 25 episodes.
Yeah.
So when we say half a season, we mean up to 12 episodes, and if it's really good, the entire 24 episodes. Sometimes they anime only 12 episodes.
Yeah, it's also like it's enough of a time commitment that you don't want to spend a ton of time watching.
And that's why. Yeah. That's why. If it's not a good show, we all have lots of stuff to do.
We don't want to time consume. Yeah.
Yeah, we have lots of stuff. I have a billion side.
We all
projects.
do. We all
He has a
do.
billion side projects. Yeah, we all do. Or he has a billion side projects. She has a billion side projects. Yeah. I never know. My Discord's totally different.
I don't know either.
Anyways, next time, Rising the Shield Hero, that's going to be November 21st. Saturday, November 21st. It'll be at 5 p.m. Thanks, everybody, for coming and listening, and have a lovely day. And we'll talk to you guys next time.
Stay cool, we bout yos.